Thank you, Nick. Nick, that was fantastic. Some great points, and I'm going to be talking about similar stuff. But here, I love the ask great questions. Know your audience. I run a podcast up here in Vancouver, Canada. I'm a money mentor. That's been my long time. Last 20 years, I've spent as a financial advisor. That is currently my regular day job. And what I've learned in asking questions and actually having conversations with people is, I sit in front of people all the time and talk to them about their lives, their money, what they want to accomplish. And all of that stems into your point of asking great questions. In order for me to really dig in on what people want to do, I need to get into their camp. And you only can do that by asking them questions. It's not about me, it's about them. And I think one of the tweaks I've done in doing the podcast has really been to get to know and understand my guest's genius. So if I switch gears now from the money mentoring camp into hosting a podcast, when I have people on, I do some research ahead of time just to get to know them. I'm a little bit different in that I want my entire podcast to be about the guest, and I'm looking to attract listeners that want to have a deeper dive on those people than just what they do, because they may get that from another podcast, or they may go to a person's website and get what they do. I want to sort of get behind and really dig into what inspired that person to have this zone of genius that they're in. So what I like to do ahead of time is do a little bit of research on them, and then I like to find a nugget, something that they've said or something on their website that speaks to who they are. And I'll typically start off my interview with them with that. So if I were to give an example, I had a guest on, Todd Talbot. He's quite famous up here in Canada, but I started it off with something he wrote on his website. And he didn't know until about halfway through that it was something he wrote, but he had put down, I've always had a special relationship with my dad and relate to him newly through my kids. I will drop everything for them. This is a role I will never give up. Watching my son and daughter grow up and experience life overwhelms me with a joy that cannot be replaced and cannot be captured in words. And when I got halfway through that, he clued in that it was his, and the emotion began for him. And it allowed us to get really connected to who Todd was and start a journey, for a podcast where we talked for an hour about who he is and where, what has taken him to the place he is today. And that for me is the great joy of sitting down with people. So that would, I guess, would be the first part, is on the podcast or when I'm interviewing on BeLive, when I have 20 minutes with somebody, it's first to get into their camp, understand their genius, but hit them with something that resonates with them deeply so that we can have a deeper conversation. So I would call that using their words, getting their words and starting a conversation with that. Then, of course, throughout the show, you want to focus on them. It's not about, when I'm sitting down talking to people, either in my day job of looking after finances or on a podcast or on BeLive, it's not about me, it's about them. And so the more I can get a guest talking about what they do and interject how I'm reacting to it, that just makes the time fly by. And I believe it engages the audience because they're getting a deeper understanding of who that person is. And my hope is they're joining the show or listening in, not because they want to hear me talk, but because they're interested in what the guest has to say. And so the more I can get a guest talking about who they are and what drives them, the better the podcast is, or the better the interview is. And here's what's great is that as you focus on them, you want to hear things that they're saying. And so you want to ask a question that maybe is inspired by something that they say. So if you're really present and listening to your guest, you will have questions come up that you can just both go back and forth on. You can actually start a conversation with them because in most cases, a lot of these people that you're interviewing, they've been asked the 20 questions that most people are going to ask them. And they maybe have these canned answers that come out of them because they've answered that same question so many times. But if you can get them talking deeper about something and start asking them questions that dig deeper, you really start to hear what they really think. And you get them, maybe you get them a little bit uncomfortable to some degree, but that's when you get the nuggets out of them. That's when you get the real interesting stuff. And if you're listening, you will have an opinion perhaps on what they say. And you might say something that drives them a little further into what you're talking about. So, first of all, find out what their zone of genius is, get some of their own words and use that to start off your interview. And then, ask and listen. Really just start listening and be present with your guests. Don't worry about, what other people are posting or anything like that that's going on. Really get present with your guest and focus on them. And I guess for my last point is, it's all about them. My view is the show is not about me. It's really about the guest. And that's my focus all the time. I'm going to look and see if there's been any questions here. Yeah, Jeff Adams added after Nick that there's so much knowledge today. I don't know if anybody out there has been watching this today. I've watched a fair amount of our guests on, and it has been great. Earlier before our last guest, Nick, who had talked about asking great questions, knowing your audience, what they're after when you're interviewing, which are points that I also agree with, was somebody talking. They were actually sharing about being a vegan. And I know for me, as I listened to that and listened to her speak about that, my own thoughts started to come up, and I had questions that I wanted to ask. And that's what having guests on is all about, is being able to have an interaction with them. And that's where I focus. That's where I really focus all of my time when I'm interviewing people. If you want to have any of our podcasts, if you want to have a listen to what I'm talking about, you can look for us at the Bloom Living Podcast. We have great episodes there where you can actually hear how I conduct the podcast. If you go to our Facebook page for Bloom Strategies, there's some BeLive that we've done on there, and it's the same thing where I'm looking to really make the guest comfortable, really focus in on their genius, and then right now I've spent 10 minutes talking. I'm already tired of listening to myself. And that's really where I get to on all my shows. I don't want to be, when I listen back to the show, I don't want to be listening to me. I want to be listening to my guests and getting those nuggets from them. And it's a great learning opportunity. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've learned from having the guests on the show and just generating a conversation with them. It's not a 20 questions. It's a conversation with them and having a real deep dive on what they're great at, because I'm probably not great in that field. So it's an opportunity for me to actually learn, and nothing like being present in the moment with them. And that's where your greatest questions, in my view, will come up, because you're actually live interacting. I mean, imagine this. You're sitting there with a guest and all you can think about is the next question you're going to ask. How much are you really paying attention to what they have to say? Whereas if you can be present in the moment and really listen for what they're saying, you're going to have a question. It's going to spark something in you, or you're going to have an aha moment that you can share back to them, and that will get them talking again about what excites them about what they do. That's it. I'm pretty much done with my view, and I don't know who our next person is. Ian Anderson.
Hi, Thomas. How you doing?
I'm awesome. I'm supposed to hand this off to you, so I'm going to give you, Ian Anderson, a great Bloom Living handoff. What do you do, Ian?
Well, I'm based in the UK. I run a social media tools blog called Seriously Social. So live video tools, social media tools is kind of my kind of thing. So I really enjoy that. And it's interesting.
And is that what you're going to be talking about today?
Well, no, we're going to talk about evergreen, making live video evergreen. But I kind of found it interesting what you were saying about, when you're on your own doing a show. I'm used to doing a show with a guest, with a co-host, and when you're on your own, it's a lot more. The pressure is on, isn't it?
Yeah, there's well, yeah, it can be for sure, because you're feeling like, what if this goes all awry on me?
Exactly. Well, thanks, Thomas. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you, Ian. I'm actually going to stand by and listen to your broadcast, because I'm very interested in what your topic is, and I wish you all the best. And thank you to BeLive. Everybody have a great day.